Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Neural Magic Podcast. Each week, we will explore one aspect of what makes your brain magical, how we set intentions, cast powerful spells, and use rituals to manifest. This week is a special episode of sorts, as I want to talk about what happens when things fail or things don't work properly in your brain. Within the last week, I suddenly came down with Bell's palsy and lost movement in one side of my face. This wanted me to contemplate this beautiful being of ours and what all needs to go right in order for us to function properly and be our whole selves. I also wanted to explore identity and how much that is tied into what we look like. Now, let us explore our magical brains together. So, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, maybe my facial distortion is obvious. For those of you listening, maybe some of it is sounding blurry, but essentially, my right side of the face has lost tension. I find it difficult to close one of my eyes, my right eye, and my right lip has a droop. And when I speak, you can kind of see that there's a angle to one side because one set of facial muscles is pulling while the other one is not kind of offering the tension to pull it back again. But if I was just sitting without offering any expressions or with just a light smile, you probably wouldn't notice much. But if I do try to smile, you probably think of that I'm kind of having a sneer or maybe showing you some condescension or superciliousness. And especially when I smile really big, then it becomes a big rictus. I was completely fine until April 12th, and this struck me on April 13th. At least of significance in the current Western astrological charting system. This happened exactly when Mars moved into Aries, and wham! And I got inflammation on this right side of my face. And since then, my right side has been paralyzed. In a way, it's all good because I don't have a stroke. So I did an MRI and I found that there's nothing really wrong in terms of my brain processing. It's just an external nerve that's coming into my face that's causing this change. And it's called as Bell's palsy, which happens when you have an inflammation of the facial nerve. And the story is that I normally live in Seattle, but I grew up in Chennai and my mom still lives there. And it's her 75th birthday this week. So I wanted to travel back to visit her for the birthday. And so I was traveling halfway across the world. And when I started my journey, I was fine. And when I landed, I had this kind of paralysis. In a way, I've come here to smile and celebrate with my mom, but this I've been hit by this thing where the smile itself has become a liability or a disability of kind. And it's also weird. Like I had one phase on one when I started on one side of the world, and by the time I landed on the other side of the world, I have a completely different face. The way it started, for those of you who are interested, is in the flight. I experienced a sudden pain in my ear, but I just attributed that to flying a long distance and maybe dehydrated and sleep deprivation because I was traveling also with my 5-year-old. And then when I landed, I was fine, but I was tearing in one eye because I just couldn't close it properly, I guess, but I didn't know that. And I asked my daughter, is my smile crooked? Because that's the only thing I could feel without actually looking in the mirror. And she said, no, 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 you're fine. But my brother later told me, who picked me at the airport, told me that my niece, who had also come to the airport, had noticed that my face was off, and she thought it was swollen or something like that. The next day, I asked my brother, as my smile's crooked, and he's a doctor, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you need steroids," and so I'm on steroids now. Bell's palsy, for those of you who are interested, is an inflammation of the facial nerve, and again, not because of a stroke in the brain, but the nerve kind of comes out here and then it spreads out. So if you want to think about it, you can imagine kind of hooking your fingers together like you do as a kid and kind of want to wave it like a butterfly or an eagle and place your thumbs together along the bridge of your nose and then wave your fingers together. The fingers will be the kind of the fanning of the facial nerves on either side, and that's what's being blocked. But it's only on one side. So on my left side, everything is fine. But on the right side, the nerves are being blocked. So there is a droop in my eyebrow, which is also preventing the closure, and then also a droop in my lower lip, which is causing the prevention of me moving my lips properly and so on. And thread of the facial nerve itself is quite amazing. Kind of like again, like the wings of the eagle, it kind of spreads all around and spans both the left side and the right side. And so, if something affects the right facial nerve, it'll affect the right side of the face, which is opposite of what normally happens. Say, if you have a stroke, where if you have a stroke on the right side of the head, it'll affect the left side of the body. There'll be weakness in the left side of the body. But in this case, if there's something affecting the right facial nerve, the right part of the face is going to be affected. And so what's happening is the way the nerves send information to your muscles is through kind of electricity. So think of these little charged particles that are flowing around in your nerve, and they are constantly sending signals to your muscles to kind of move and act and create action. This is being blocked, and so your muscles kind of not receiving the signal anymore, and so they're not functioning the way they're supposed to. And this also translates into part of my tongue not being working properly, and which is kind of causing the slurring and things like that as well. The biggest thing is one of the exercises they give you for the physical therapy is to blow a balloon. And my I've been competing with my 5-year old to try and both blow the balloon, and she is able to do it immediately, and I just am not able to because all the air just kind of leaks out of my mouth instead of going into the balloon. The reason I'm actually talking about this here in this podcast is it's really been fascinating for me to watch. I once I knew I was not stroking out, I was much more okay in examining myself, and I noticed that my smile was not there, and even without seeing myself, I knew it was not there. And it was interesting for me that that is the first thing that I really noticed, and that kind of brought me to what is my identity and what am I looking for in my face when I'm thinking of myself, even when I'm picturing myself in my head, or am I picturing myself in my head with a smile on my face, or am I? Is this something that I'm constantly sensing from my features that is telling my brain, "Hey, my smile is working well," or it's not working well, and so on. So I've been trying to figure out without actually physically looking at myself in the mirror, what is my brain noticing and creating these mental images of what I'm supposed to look like and what I actually look like. And the other interesting thing that came up was on April 13th, when I landed, I was still jet lagged and it was early in the morning. And I happened to log into my friend Marian Kirk's Instagram live. And she kind of does a live reading. She's in the UK, she's based in the UK. And she pulled out a card and she talked about how it was, I think it was the Ace of Serpents or something. I'll clarify it later on the links. But she said Mars is entering Aries, and it's time for you to. You're shedding your skin, as she said, and this literally feels like a literal interpretation of a card of me shedding my skin. And as I'm going through physical therapy and trying to get back to what is like so-called normalcy, I'm wondering what new skin is going to emerge and what new identities are going to emerge from all of this, is something that I've been wondering about. They say your body keeps the score, and different things emotions emanate when you unleash knots in certain parts of the body. So that's something also I've been thinking about is what kind of scores has the right side of my face been keeping? As I do recover from this, what new identities and knots am I going to kind of wrap myself in? Or am I kind of going to go back and repeat the same patterns over again? So it almost seems like this is a learning lesson for me to kind of let go of certain patterns or identities that I've kind of stored up within me. And as I move forward into the next phase of my life, I'm going to be reworking my skin or regaining my skin in some ways, and becoming renewed and new, and get a new set of identities. The other thing I've been wondering about, the sudden loss of one side of my face, has been make me think about how many things need to go right in order for you to function properly, and it goes even beyond that. Like, how many things need to go right from that first step of conception to where we are now. So the fact that we all start from a single cell, and then we develop this amazing brain, and then we are a fetus, and then we grow into this kid, and then we become adults, functioning adults. However normal or abnormal you might call yourself, but it needs a certain amount of things to go right in order for you to get to that point. And so I kind of asked Claude, what is the probability that things go right? What is the probability that things go right? And Claude was kind of talking about how from the first cell, you need not to get the correct chromosomal set. You need about 10,000 molecular steps. Then from there till about day 5, when you have the blastocyst, where you will have an embryo, there are about 10 raised to 6, so it's about a million gene expression decisions that need to happen. And then from there, you need to then implant, and then brain formation needs to happen. Brain formation, you need about, almost on the order of like a trillion decisions in order for you to get to a proper brain. Um, but then there's also like a pullback from this concept of saying that at every point there's a checkpoint to make sure like errors are not repeated or miscarriages happen, to make sure that you're not getting you are getting a fully functional being. So there are certain mechanisms by which this is being checked. But so even though the probability of developing a fully functional human being is infinitesimally small, it is actually much more than that, because there are all these error checking mechanisms and mechanisms to make sure that whatever is being developed is going to be functional. And that was really fascinating for me to just observe, as just like as a thought exercise, if you want to call it that. That aside, what it is kind of fascinating to think about how so many things need to go right in order for us to develop into a normal, functional human. And not just human beings, like all animals as well. I've also thought about, I do snail brains. I look at snail brains for a living, and I do research on snail brains. And every time I open a snail up for an experiment, I wonder about how it's so difficult to put it back all together again. You can very easily cut it open, but it's so difficult to put it all back together again. And the first instance of it having developed that way is, again, not that easy. It's not straightforward. There is a pattern to it, but it's not a straightforward thing that happened. I'm sorry, some of this is all wandering around, but these are all the things that have been. It's because this onset of this debilitation has been sudden. I've been really thinking about a lot of different things, and one of them was the sounds of my brain, because as soon as my we discovered this, I went in for an MRI just to make sure I was not stroking out, as I said. And again, my MRI was fine, so I'm not stroking out. And the MRI machine is so loud. So I was in the machine, and there were all these clicks and all these beeps, and it was so loud. And I was thinking about magnetic resonance, and how, if this was a resonance of my brain, is my brain also so loud? And if this is what the internal sound of the brain sounds like when you amplify that particular signal, is something that I was thinking about. Like, how loud is it in my head? Is something that I was contemplating on as I was lying for about 20 minutes without moving my head in this huge machine. And the clicks and the ticks of the machine as it moved through different powers sounded almost like those alien movies that you see where you're trying to communicate. I just went and saw Hail Mary with my nieces yesterday, and it's kind of sounded similar to that on some level. It's like communicating with something that is alien to you, but still is actually within you. The other one I've been experiencing is a physical therapy of galvanic stimulation, where they've been placing these electrodes at different points in my facial nerve to stimulate the muscles. Um, and so they're stimulating the nerves using current, and then to make sure that the nerve is constantly activated, so the muscle below the nerve is also being activated. This one, you can kind of feel a coldness and a wetness on the of the electrodes that they place on your face, but you can also feel like these pinpricks, and the pain almost feels like burning, but it's not burning. It's really fascinating to observe what is the liminal space between what you feel about sensation and pain, and where is the border between it? Because she keeps asking, "Are you feeling pain? Are you feeling pinpricks?" And I'm like, sort of, yeah, it is here, but it's not there. So that is something I've been thinking about a lot. What is the threshold for me in terms of moving between pain to just feeling cold or pinpricks or something like that? And I teach a lot about this. As a scientist and also as an educator, I teach a lot about action potentials and neural signals in an everyday basis. In fact, I was telling my brother, joking with him, that I now have the next 10 years of lectures all like ready. I'm going to be talking about this as an example, using my own brain scans as an example for the next 10 years of my career. But it's it's amazing to see it happen in terms of she is applying a certain current to your face, and that's then being transferred into these twitches along the muscles, and that is then causing um, them to start moving and producing words and expressions, and all these little things that we take for granted are because of these tiny, tiny, tiny signals that are coming from a spot, which is then generated by a thought. It is it is just amazing, like how the body functions. Finally, I want to talk more about identity. I think, what is our identity, and is it how we look, how we speak? That is the one thing I was really worried about, is speaking, because I speak a lot an educator, and I speak as a professional speaker, and that is definitely being affected. So I need to definitely get on the therapy bandwagon to make sure I can communicate, and which means that that is highly tied into how I perceive myself, and how do I project myself out there. And so is highly weaved into my own identity. I'm also thinking about, what is it about me that people are looking for? Are they looking for my face? Are they looking for my eyes or my smile? As visual creatures, we all have a certain need. My 5-year-old was like completely like, okay. She's like, you're still fine. What is it that people are hoping to see when they see me? And what is it that I'm hoping to see when I see me, is something that I've been thinking about. What am I relearning when I'm learning these functions again? As I spoke about, I hope I'm not relearning karmic bad habits, that I've shed that aspect of things. And as I'm working back, I'm going to get a new phase, which will be similar to my old phase, but still be different than before. My father told me, he's a surgeon. He told me, as far as disabilities go, this is probably the mildest form of them, and there's a great chance of recovery. And so my heart goes out to all the folks who are there, who are experiencing much more profound identity losses, maybe with a longer trajectory into their new selves. I myself kind of see it between, like, a month to maybe 3 months. Some people talk about 6 months to recover from something like this. This was a sudden thing, and I've been thinking about all of these concepts. I still can't conceive like a complete change in identities that happened because of some other debilitating circumstances. So I really want to wish all those folks out there who are going through that all the very best. And I also hope that all of us learn to kind of not use our physical self as the way we consider our identities and tie it into something more. And in a way, I'm glad that I have my 5 year old who can kind of brings me back down to that core of I am not my face. I hope that we can all learn from that simple lesson. Thank you for being with me on this kind of personal episode of sorts, but I hope that this is also a way of exploring neural magic, the things that need to go right in order for us to function well, and how we can recover and rebirth ourselves um, every we do it all the time, and but some of us need to do it much more kind of concentrated fashion and acute moments in life, and that's where I'm at right now. So I hope to see you on more episodes, and you can follow me on Instagram at sidbits or YouTube at brain mystic, and subscribe to the podcast, join the mailing list. The Neuroscience of Tarot book is out now, and the Neuroscience of Magic will be available in the fall of 26. For more information, go to brainmystic.com or siddharthramakrishnan.com. Thank you, and see you next week.